And welcome back. I'm joined now by Brandon Jones, Political Director of the Southern Poverty Law Center's Action Fund and a new majority PAC, and Republican strategist and Clearwater Group managing partner Austin Barber. Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you.
We just heard from Presley and we heard earlier from Reeves. Let's start now about Austin. Talk a little bit about what you heard in this interview, and particularly from the governor, about the economy and that we have momentum.
Yeah, and I think momentum is key here. People are going to watch these debates or long interviews or what you want to call them, and they're going to look at the candidate and say, how does he look? What's my impression of them? And I do want to start. I thought the governor looked confident. I thought he looked great, sounded great, and particularly when he talked about what's important here in the closing is the momentum that Mississippi has, both on jobs in the economy and education. I want to make sure I get this right. In 2022, so just last year, they set a record of $6 billion of investment across Mississippi. It's a record for the state, including 1,000 new jobs that have an average of $100,000 per job in the Golden Triangle. I think that's a big deal. Obviously, when you poll issues, jobs in the economy is always #1, no matter what race you're polling, and I thought the governor sounded really good on that.
Your thoughts on what the governor's saying?
You know, what we heard the governor talk about are issues that have pretty broad bipartisan support. I think the question that Presley's trying to raise is, do we want to make this an economy that works for everyone? There are people who aren't a part of this economy. There are people who are still struggling at minimum wage. There are people who can't afford health care, which is a huge issue in this state. And so the question is, do we want to do some of these things to incentivize people to invest here, but do we also want to make it an economy that works for others? We have the highest grocery tax in the country, and you heard him say we have very high car tags. So these costs, the way that it works for the individual, it's not an economy that's working for everyone, and I think that's what the issue is in this race.
When we talk about taxes, Presley wants to talk about the car tags and the grocery tax, and the governor wants to eliminate the income tax. So where is that going to stand, and how is that going to resonate?
Well, I think, you know, Austin and I have talked about this before. What the governor is describing is a regressive tax structure. It's something that favors a select few. It's something that really doesn't work anywhere that it's been tried. What we need is a system that, again, is fair and that works for everyone.
Also, the taxes.
Under Tate Reeves' leadership, we've had $1 billion in tax cuts, and if you look at the dollars that are coming in, state revenues, they're expanding every single year. I should use the word growing every single year. And I do want to point out that personal income tax since 2020 is up $9,000 a person. That's a big deal. And listen, voters vote with their pocketbook. Jobs in the economy and education are two big issues, and I thought Tate Reeves did a good job talking about those tonight.
When we talk about to expand, it's to expand or not to expand. That's the question here when it comes to Medicaid and not. You know, whatever side of the issue, or how much is that going to play in this election that we're going through, also when we talk about Medicaid expansion?
I mean, it's always an issue because that's an issue that Brandon Presley has wanted to talk about. That's an issue that the Democrats are talking about. But what Tate Reeves has been able to do, he has worked with hospital leaders, big hospitals, rural hospitals, community hospitals, all across the state. They came out with a tremendously popular, big deal. I think it's $700 million, just under $700 million of new dollars that are going to come into the state that are going to help support these hospitals that have been struggling. Not just big hospitals or small hospitals, but all throughout the state. And we have got to make sure that we are improving and expanding access to health care in rural Mississippi, and having a strong hospital in a small community or a big community is a great way to do this. And this new finding of, it's not $1 billion, I want to get the number right, about $700 million. That's a tremendous boost to hospitals throughout the state, Brandon.
And Brandon Presley's his fight for Medicaid expansion?
Expansion is working throughout this country, in Republican states and Democratic states. It's not Democrats who are bringing this up, you know, on their own. Republican governors have passed this. Presumptive House Speaker Jason White has brought it up. Delbert Hosemann ran on it 4 years ago. I mean, this is not some type of leftist idea. It's something that makes financial sense. What you won't find one penny of in that program that the governor talked to you about is additional health insurance for working people. This is a patch to a hospital system that is at risk of failing. and not any answer for people who still are using emergency rooms like their doctor's office. And until we address that problem, it's all smoke and mirrors. We have got to find a way to cover the 230,000 working Mississippians. You hear the governor frame it as welfare. That is a disgrace. That is offensive to people who are working throughout this country that are getting the benefit of Medicaid expansion, millions of Americans. And 230,000 Mississippians are struggling and facing financial peril because, again, they have to use the emergency room like the doctor's office.
And talk about the negative campaign. Both candidates are attacking each other when it comes to this campaign on the TANF and on Presley receiving money. How much is that going to play into what's going on here? Do voters really care about those issues when it comes to the negative campaign, Austin?
Voters do care about negative campaigns. They do, because they're constantly surrounded by the TV ads, the digital ads. You know, people knock on their doors, handing them a flyer. And, you know, sadly, negative campaigns sometimes do work. They do catch the attention of voters. There is a sort of a fine line where you don't want to do too much or be too overly negative. But the issues in this race that matter, again, are going to be education and the economy. And those are the issues that I think Tate Reeves, I know Tate Reeves has led on and has a tremendous record for him. And I think when voters look and they have to make that final decision when they go to the polls, they're going to say, what are the issues that really matter to me, my wife, my children? It is how much money am I making? Do I have the opportunity to go get a new job? And what's the quality of the education that my child or my grandchild is getting right now? And I think Tate Reeves is winning on both of those.
Brendan?
Well, I actually think the campaign's going to be about corruption in this state, which we are a state that's had unbelievable corruption. I mean, $77 billion of money intended for the poorest Mississippians that find its way into friends of highly connected people. That is tremendous, and that's the reason you keep hearing that being talked about. And by the way, our government has done nothing to address that. We have not passed a single bill to make that less likely to happen. And nothing that's come out of this administration has made it less likely to happen again. And so, of course, you're going to talk about that. Medicaid expansion matters to 60% of voters in Mississippi, so naturally that matters too. And then having an economy that works for everybody, I think those three things are on the ballot.
All right, here we go. Quick, about 60 seconds here, real quickly. What are we going to see in this last stretch, this last 7 days to go before voters go to the polls?
Okay, I think that specifically, since we're sitting here in Jackson, Mississippi, crime is a big issue that has not gotten a lot of attention, but I think that it will. 10 more seconds on this. Crime's a big issue in Jackson. Tate Reeves has made it a big priority during his tenure as governor, expanding Capitol Police to help, you know, fight the crime that we have here in Jackson. Jackson voters, I think that's a big issue that hasn't come up a lot, but I think it will these last few days.
Brandon?
You know, Brandon Presley is a person who has lived the Mississippi experience. His lived experience is one of calamity. It's been one of financial hardship. He knows what working Mississippians are going through, and I think that connects on a very deep personal level.
All right, lots more to talk about. Unfortunately, we'll talk about it more throughout the next few days. Thank you very much. Brandon Jones and Austin Barber, thank you for joining us. We'll be right back for a few more minutes after this.